So the US government cannot borrow net more money. There's various different ways in which they can spend money and still remain underneath the debt ceiling. The first is the Treasury general account, like their checking account. At the start of the quarter, I believe they had something around $750 billion in it, and now it's around 450 odd billion. And so that means they spent money to fund the government. In addition, they have this bucket called extraordinary measures. It's a bunch of government programs in which they can underfund and again, spend more money to fund the government. So taking these three things into consideration, we can come up with an effective borrowing. And I actually was going through the math before this interview, and it appears that while if you read the press release, it sounds like, oh, the US government is borrowing less money. When you add back all these other factors, if we take a look at first quarter of 25 versus first quarter of 24, it looks as if on the first pass that the government is actually borrowing more money than they were in the same period of last year. Now, I'm not exactly 100% sure on this. I've pinged some analysts who are a lot more in the weeds on exactly how the Treasury funds itself during a debt ceiling period, but I wouldn't really take what you read as gospel because, again, it's unclear whether the Treasury is borrowing more or less because obviously we saw yields rise like 50 basis points over 2 trading sessions when stocks were cratering and the volatility in the market was up. And so the question was, oh, does Besson have the ability to do something to help the market? And he said that he had this ability to do increased buybacks. And so what a buyback is when the Treasury issues a new bond and then uses those proceeds to buy an old bond. And the reason why this helps the system is that a lot of hedge funds put on an arbitrage trade. They buy a cheap bond and they sell a Treasury futures contract against it. They take the bond to the bank and they obtain financing for that. Now, the bank is going to give you more financing if it's the liquid on-the-run bond, the newest issued bond, versus a bond that's a little bit older. So if the Treasury is going to take a lot of these old bonds off the balance sheet of the banks and these hedge funds, then they're able to use more leverage to buy more Treasury securities at auctions. And I believe that the US government has to borrow more money than what we think, and therefore Besson will have to issue more debt, and therefore he needs to find a way for these individuals to obtain as much leverage as possible through the banking system. And ultimately that means that there's more dollars floating around in the world because the US government is spending more money on stuff. And so that's kind of the TLDR on to increase the uses of your platform apart from just giving away free tokens. So I think most projects out there have not been able to achieve those things. And as such, the token price is not going to do that well.
Yeah, but I feel like so many projects, even with Taiwan investors, like super top team, they have like extra high valuations of over $1 billion or a few $1 billion, but they don't have any revenue like a lot of different layer 1s, layer 2s.
That might be
they
the
won't
case.
Survive
They'll survive, but if you're going to buy a 1 billion FDV project, you want it to go to 100 billion, right? That's very difficult to do. Just law of large numbers. So why would that particular project do well if they have no clients, no revenue, no reason why your token should be bought? Sure, they had a great listing a year ago, 2 years ago, but if I'm going to deploy capital today and you're overpriced, you're not going to be able to go up as much as, maybe something that's $100 million market cap, but actually has traction, clients and revenue and whatever, that can easily go to 10 billion and you'll make more money.
So what projects and altcoins are you betting now on?
So we're super positive on Pendle. So the largest sort of fixed income protocol. It's been around for a long time, very, very high coin degen landscape. But if something really pops from 0 to 100 million market cap and has a good volume and trend, then I'll trade it.
So did you get rid of your meme coins by now?
We don't own any meme coins right now.
Do you plan to, or it will depend on
the market? It depends on the price action.
So what's good return for you on this market? Like what price targets, what returns do you target usually?
Need to beat the return of Bitcoin. So if we're going to deploy capital, it needs to outperform Bitcoin. That's the benchmark.
So what projects may outperform Bitcoin, or what you mentioned, EtherFi, Pendle?
Yeah, EtherFi, Pendle, those are probably our 2 top picks right now. There'll be other things that'll appear in the ecosystem that we think are, great value. And obviously that really depends on price, right? So it could be a great project, but the price is just too high for us to make a return that's better than Bitcoin. Not to say it's a bad project, but everyone's different in terms of what their hurdle rate is as an investor.
So do you think that we are in the bull market again now, or do you expect as well the downturn of the price of Bitcoin?
I think we've been in a bull market since November 2022 when on, Trump's a politician. He's got a lot of things he's got to focus on. So I think people seem to be patient.
So do you think there may be again some tariffs manipulation and markets going down again?
I think that people do not understand that there's a structural change going on between the US and China, that the imbalances between the two economies will get unwound. It'll take a while. Trump is not the first president to start unwinding it. He's just a symptom of the underlying cause. And so I don't think people should, get too excited or too dismayed in terms of how this tariff, discussion goes.
And as well, during this uncertainty on the market, we saw that gold rose quite a lot. So did you invest into gold, or are you purely in crypto?
I've owned gold for a long time. So I have physical gold in a vault. I own a lot of gold mining equities that I think are still undervalued given the massive rise in price in gold. I think that gold can go much higher from here because the price is rising. They figure out a way why they hate ETH because the price is falling.
Yeah, and as well with different altcoins which are not like top 10, did you make money or did you lose money?
Yes, I don't know. I don't really track that. The positions are so small. We make money in the stuff we actually have conviction in. I might lose money in random punts that we take on the portfolio, but we limit the amount of size that we do on these things that we have no conviction in, so that if we lose money, it's not that much and we don't care. So that net, big bet on Athena, some other projects, those gains massively outperform anything else in the portfolio where we lose money.
So do you do a lot of DeFi stuff yourself now?
No, I mean, we invest in some projects. We don't really do DeFi or sort of Loop or some of the other crazy strategies.
Any staking?
Do we have any staking? We stake some stables in Athena to earn the USDE yield, the staked USDE yield. So that's probably the biggest thing in DeFi that we do.
Mm-hmm. So we are now as well in Dubai. So what's your opinion about this?
Next 3 to 4 years.
And what rate of deflation of the US dollar we will see in that case?
It depends against what? I don't know. Against another fiat currency, who knows? Because they can all just print the same amount of money and then stay stable. I think dollar depreciates against gold. Dollar depreciates against Bitcoin. U.S. Treasuries are probably the worst thing to own versus any other sort of financial asset out there, as they need to devalue because there's too much out there. So.
Mm-hmm. And as well, for example, US, you told that Trump tries to be crypto positive, to get some crypto regulations and etc. And as well, he announced US crypto reserve. So what are your thoughts on that? And I've heard that you don't really support the idea of Bitcoin reserve. Why so?
I don't like it when a government owns an asset because what they can buy, they can sell. And so yes, people are very enthusiastic about it now, but what happens if there's another administration, depending on which country you're in, and they decide, oh, there's a bunch of money here sitting here. I want to sell this so I can do whatever government program.
In US and China as well for the holding Bitcoin. So can you tell how you see this?
I mean, China mines Bitcoin. We know that. It's like 20% of the hash rate is in China. They banned all private mining of Bitcoin. So we have to assume that local governments and the central government or their proxies are mining Bitcoin within China. I don't know how much, if any,
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.